Well, it's that time again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the interview with Craig Veltri.
Thank you, Megan Pennington, and welcome to the interview. Let me get my cans back on. Our guest is easily the most well-traveled artist I have spoken to on this program. Her website claims that the Gulf Shores, Alabama native has performed in over 30 countries and has plans for more. Her most recent album, Changing, shows her range in Americana, jazz, and blues while sifting through how malleable her life seems to be. I highly recommend that you listen to Changing in full, and we will play the title track at the end of the episode. Recording on location in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, here she is, Melissa Joyner. Melissa, welcome to the interview.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you began your life on the shores of Alabama, and you have been around the world. I like to ask anybody that has that extensive amount of travel, do you have a favorite country that you have visited?
Oh, you'd think eventually I would have a quick answer for that. I will say Iceland or Ireland. There's just something about being in those countries that makes me feel alive.
What is that something?
So in Ireland, it's this sense of going home. And ironically, I did the whole 23andMe, and my entire 90% is from this one town.
Joyner is an Irish name.
Well, it's funny, I was sitting in Achill, Ireland. It's this little coastal bay town. And I was like, I just want to book this and sleep here. It just feels so safe and good, like a warm bath. And then sure enough, I did my test, and my entire family is from that specific town. Iceland just feels wild and very animalistic, and it just recharges in something in me. Like in America, my favorite place is Hawaii, and they're both volcanic places. And
right.
So, yeah, and I'm a fiery person, so I think there's something about being in those areas that just makes me feel a little bit more alive, and I love that.
Well, I've heard the Irish temper. My mom's side of the family is 50% Irish. Her maiden name is Carney, so I have witnessed and have felt the Irish temper quite a few times myself. I completely understand. Now, you said that to me earlier that your father was a musician yourself. Was that your introduction into it?
Oh yeah, I never knew a time in my entire life I didn't know what songwriting was. My dad's played with all these different famous people on these festivals. He's been a studio musician. I was getting kicked out of the writing session since I was 3 years old because I was too loud.
If you can't actually contribute a melody, you're just making noise at that point.
I thought a word was a third, but apparently not. Hey Dad, what's this? Doesn't count apparently.
Hey Dad, what's this? That could be retroactively looking at that as the title of the song. So was there? You say all these festivals, so the travel, the Wanderlust is that where that began as well, or was just opportunities kept showing up?
I had an uncle who taught me to escape into safe places, and for me, safe places meant different cultures, different countries. He would always bring me back things. Actually, when I first started playing music, a couple people told me I couldn't do it. So of course, bringing in the Irish spirit.
I find that very surprising, but I also have another point to that. Why were they telling you that? Do you agree with it at the
time? No. I was an opera singer who fell in love with the blues, grew up in a roadhouse bar. I was an amalgamation of confusion of different vocal styles. I had no idea what was going on, but I had a dream, and it was bigger than me. So much so that I attribute a lot of my success actually to the people who didn't support me, because I took a job on a cruise ship. I'd never been on a plane by myself. My first solo plane ride was to freaking Australia. I didn't know.
Gee, go big or go home.
Exactly, and I knew that I would be working 3 times a day on a cruise ship, and that it would teach me how to get good at guitar. Everything I've learned about music has been in front of people. I did everything the backwards, wrong, probably way, but I'm so grateful for it because I don't think I would be as cultured or well-traveled had those people not really believed me in the first place. But that, early on, I'm sure you've noticed now, I love to talk to people and really dive in. I did that everywhere I went. So on the cruise ships, I made a lot of amazing friends from different cultures and different countries. And it was very much like, hey, I'd love to come visit you, stay on your couch, play in your country. Please come see me in America. So I've always had this whole, if I'm going into a music scene to take a gig or do something, I wanted to give it back or do something of the like here. So I kind of learned really early on from that cruise gig how to then take that into other countries.
Now you told me you wound up in Myrtle Beach because it was either going to be you're stuck in Poland for COVID, or you're going to be stuck in Myrtle Beach. How did you wind up in that situation, and why did you ultimately choose Myrtle Beach?
What a big difference, right? So I was a producer for a family travel show that worked with Nat Geo and PBS, and basically we talked earlier about being right brain, left brain, musician, booker, person. I've always
Bo Burnham has a great song about that.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. I've always had the idea of making things make sense. So if I was getting flown out to these locations, I would also then try to book tours. Makes it look cooler online, but in reality, it makes it affordable. But we were supposed to.
So that's how you wound up in Europe and all these other places.
Oh no, I just did that because I'm renegade and wanted to do it.
Ah.
That was before the TV show. You can't tell me nothing. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to feel what it felt like to play in other countries. But that specific show that I was working for was cool because they'd fly you out of like whatever your hometown was, and so there was like a week of lapse in my schedule, and I was playing in a town called Amelia Island, and 3 different people that same week were like, hey, you should play Myrtle Beach, and I'm like, why is everyone talking to me about Myrtle Beach? And I'm a really big believer in science, God, the universe, all that stuff, and so when 3 different people told me this, and a gentleman named Jeff Cole was like, you know what, I love your music, I've got a beach condo, you guys can come stay in it. My partner at the time and I were living in a van. We were touring around, and our lives looked like this. We'd work for the TV show, we'd play gigs in places that I would book, and we just travel trying to make content because I was trying to make a production house at the time. And I had a week open, and we never had a week open because I like to stay busy. And 3 different people and a guy's offered to let us stay, like, we're going to Myrtle Beach. And so we kept having all these meetings trying to schedule this Poland shoot. This is right at the crux of COVID. I just finished a shoot in the Dominican Republic. Everyone's starting to get sick. They don't know if we're scheduling this Poland trip, but it was on the books. So I knew that we were going to have this time free. They were going to fly us out of Myrtle Beach. Well, the world shut down. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to be here. And Luke Sharp of the Goofy Footers let us stay in the bottom of his Airbnb and taught me how to surf. I met all the musicians here. And that same man that told me about Myrtle Beach in the first place, we ended up renting an apartment from him. I mean, I had an inflatable couch because I refused to buy real furniture because I thought the world was going to open back up, that we'd go back in the van and I'd resume my life as a touring musician. That never happened. But I do, after I finally did get to go film in Poland, no offense to anyone in Polish descent who's watching this, but after eating the food there for a week of shooting versus being here, I thank God every day I got stranded here.
Oh.
I said what I said.
You're going to be, I should have mentioned that this podcast is produced by Starfire Media based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Probably one of the biggest Polish populations in the world outside of Poland.
I love the dumpling things with the stuff inside of them.
Pierogies.
Yeah. Listen, that was the hardest language because as a producer, I had to like cue all the scenes, make sure I was saying everything right. I had a production manager, thank God, who literally had a Polish friend who was like helping us with translations. It was the most difficult job, but the coolest, most friendly, beautiful people. So even though I don't like the food because I'm uncultured in that way.
I will give you this on this point. You probably are the kind of person, if you say that I prefer Southern food over Polish food, what you're really saying is I prefer grilled and fried as opposed to boiled. So
yeah, you know what? You just nailed it. It's the boiled because we had like Michelin stars cooking the most amazing food and all the desserts. Like the one thing they do there is they take time. Like, and I was making the film schedule, so it was horrible because I was trying to keep everything on, and it would take 12 minutes for each thing to be presented. So it was. You're right. The food was amazing, but it's a lot of boiled stuff.
I imagine you might have a couple of opinions about Ireland and the entire UK island as well for the same reasons.
I'm going to be smart and not say them on air. I love potatoes, though.
Who doesn't love potatoes? We're here with Melissa Joyner here on the Craig Veltri interview, proud member of the Starfire Media Podcast Network, the voice of the independent artist. the newly rebranded Starfire Media. We are now in the business of artist development. If you need an EPK, if you need gigs booked, if you need help producing a demo, we are more than willing to help. Contact us at starfireradio@gmail.com. I'm working on getting the changeover. We're not Starfire Radio anymore, but starfireradio@gmail.com, and one of us will be more than happy to help bolster your career. Let's talk about the most recent record, Changing, which is an incredibly eclectic record that seems to find different avenues of what the artist or the speaker is going through and trying to find in their soul as it is, as the record states, changing. Now, the record could have also been called, and the title track could have been called, What Are You Waiting For? I have several songs where I'm like, the hook, it could go either way as far as the title is concerned. Why did you ultimately land on Changing as a title of that song, and ultimately this record?
What a good question. Honestly, thank you. I've not been asked one to that degree. So, I have to be careful for legal reasons, obviously, how I answer this, but I lost all my music, and I had an option to stay the victim and be angry, or change and evolve and let it grow in to something else. And so, my whole life, ever since I was little, because I grew up, like we mentioned before, with my father being a musician, I knew that having an album was the single most important thing an artist could do, because after I die, it'll still be here. I had imposter syndrome, and I was really insecure. I couldn't afford to do an album. So I went out in the world and garnered experiences, hurt, grief, love, all these things, because I knew that one day I would be able to create an album. But also it was an excuse. While everybody else was making albums, I felt like a failure. But ooh, look at me over here. I just played in Switzerland.
Right.
So it was kind of like a crutch, if I'm being honest. But when it finally came time to make that decision of be a victim or recreate all my music and make something new, I was like, you know what? 10 years. It was the 10 mark of my career as a full-time musician. I was like, I want to recreate, change who I am. Before I do that, let me honor all that I've been. So the reason I called it Changing is because on the entire album, I have my bonus track with Nina Simone's freaking guitar leader of all people, and I was very much taken under the wing of some beautiful people early in my career who believed in me, and we recorded the whole EP, and I never did anything with it because I went on the cruise ships through my life, took a different thing, but I even had one of those songs on there, and it's insecure as I was about releasing it, I made it the bonus track because I wanted, if I was going to call it Changing, for the listener to be able to listen to all the changes within the album. But then that created a beautiful problem, because if I had, 8 songs from the 10 years, well, what represents me now? And I was in a relationship with my duo partner, and he was older than me, and he had all this beautiful time to figure out who he was and what he was doing in life. But you have to take into mind, I spent, 8 years just trying to prove, hey, I'm worth listening to. So my entire identity became what other people wanted me to be so that maybe they would like me. And then all of a sudden, I just started doing that beautiful thing of like, when you get into your 30s, who am I? What am I? What do I want to be? So I started growing and changing. And unfortunately, he didn't, because he was confident and happy in who he was. And so we started playing more shows together, and I hated that I pulled a Stevie Nicks, because I would write songs about our relationship, and he would play them. Now, whether he didn't care, or didn't choose to care, or didn't realize the songs were about him, he would play them. And it just kept getting further and further apart.
And it never came to the conversation of, so you want to talk about something with this
Oh, no,
song?
it definitely did, and it just didn't seem to matter. And that's fine, because, we're doing different things. But the song, and that song specifically, what are you waiting for? Because here I am, I'm growing, I'm changing. I want you to be proud and happy for me, but you're not. Because you're losing me, because you know that I'm changing and evolving. And several of the songs were about that experience. And then I made myself write 34 years, because I think it was my last night of being 34.
As somebody who just turned an age recently, that almost was the song I played at the end of this episode. I usually play one song at the end of episode per artist, but I certainly related to just the weight of all of what you were saying in there. But what I really loved was just how much musical liberty you seem to be taking with all of your songs. You start off with something that sounds like a back porch somewhere in Muscle Shoals. You know, a lot of slide guitars. You do a lot of. I mean, I Chat GPT would have exploded if I told them to give me some comps.
What a huge compliment! Thank you.
Because I could hear some influence from certainly Nina Simone now that you pointed out, but I can hear John Fogerty, I can hear Jen Wigmore, I can hear KT Tunstall in a couple of those songs.
Thanks,
I can even hear a little bit of early Miranda Lambert as well.
Okay.
So talk to me about just obviously it's a record. I do notice our friends in the Goofy Footers contributed to the what would normally be the final track if Color in Gray wasn't on there. Obviously, it was a locally produced record. I haven't heard many Music Row outfits do it better. Who helped you make this record?
Oh man, his name is Ed out of North Myrtle Beach at Atlantic Coast Recording Studio, Ed Dennis. And I have to just say, side note, I didn't know that it mattered what the order of your songs were on an album. That's how worldly I was, but green I was when it came to like an album. For me, I wanted to tell a story. Like if you were, I think back to old school, like listening to records on the floor with your friends. If you started it from song 1 to song 10, did it go over that span of 10 years? And I tried to make it feel that way.
So this was, in that instance, was a concept record almost.
It was important to me that if I had done 10 years of music, that I knew personally the ups and downs and the heartaches and the winnings and things that I had. I wanted to make sure that while I may not say those things out loud, I knew what bookmarked each thing. Like I knew I wanted to have a traveling song. I'm one of those people, I'll go do a thing so I can write about it. Like I'll take a train in Europe so that I can write a train song. I'll get desperately lost in Iceland so I can write a song. Living here in Myrtle Beach, I got really into surfing.
So you're a method songwriter.
I am a let life have its way with me and see what comes out of it songwriter.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you. But Luke Sharp of the Goofy Footers is the one that let me live in his basement, basically. He taught me how to surf. And it was imperative to me that I would be remiss to not have the Goofy Footers, because I stayed with them and I felt I'm actually going to start playing saxophone with them again to make me get out of not playing anymore. But they have been through so much. Their drummer, their bass player, shout out to Drew Jacobs and Tina Marie Racer, and John Washburn on trumpet, played on my album. So I was like, you know what? Every good album to me has some kind of collaboration with someone. And Christopher Nelson is in my band, Melissa Joyner and the Travel Cats. He's an amazing artist. Actually, you would love him, very in your vein. But I was like, you know what? So much of who I am as a musician, my friends call me the one-man jam band, and I don't do it on purpose. I just have a great time. Nothing's ever the same. I just get up there and have fun. I was like, I want, if someone were to have never met me, but listen to my album, feel like there was some collective chaos within this album, but they understood who Melissa was. And I had to have the Goofy Footers on that because it was the biggest cluster F word ever. I mean, I was a teacher before I was a full-time musician, trying to organize it and getting the harmonies. And finally, we just went in and said, you know what? Let's gang style these vocals. Let's just have fun. And Jessica and Mario, like everyone in the band just kind of came in and we just had a great time. And my record is a little heavy and there's some serious stuff, but there's also life after the serious. There's The Waves Ain't Gonna Ride Themselves. It was hard for me as an English teacher to put Ain't Gonna into a song, but here we are.
Well, we'll definitely talk about the teaching aspect of it, but as far as the build, you began to talk about the build in the record. Mm-hmm. So when you started out, did you really was just like, here are these handful of songs? How did you form this?
So I think it was more of mile markers. Like you said, Muscle Shoals, Alabama Delta, which is very accurate because I grew up in a Roadhouse bar in the Florida-Alabama line. But a lot of my influence, I would be horrible to not mention this, is from the Mississippi Delta.
Right.
I went to school on an opera scholarship at Delta State University, but that's where I heard blues for the first time. I heard a woman growl, and I was like, oh, I don't know what this is, but I want it.
Your story almost echoes Pat Benatar's.
I love Pat Benatar. She's actually one of the few classically trained artists, and people think opera is not cool until I tell them that Pat Benatar was a classically trained opera singer, and all of a sudden it's cool. But to answer your question, sorry I kind of went on a rabbit hole there, but it was more important that
well, there is a song in there called White Rabbit that's absolutely awesome.
Thank you. And my dad screwed me on that one in such a beautiful way. I'll tell you that story in a second. But
Please.
I want to say that instead of it, at first, like I said, I was like, must mark all these things in my life. That got really overwhelming because how do you narrow that down to like 12 songs? So instead it was like, what are my biggest influences? Like, there's one song I went all the way back home to play a songwriters festival, and I made sure my dad recorded on it. Nick Branch, the one that linked me up with Al Shackman, who would work with Nina Simone and Erica Badu, like he was such a huge, firm believer in me, and John Davis, who I'm actually reconnected to play a gig with, played Upright on me. All these musicians did this for free because they believed in me, and that was the first taste of having someone besides myself believe in me. So I had to make sure that was included. I had to make sure the Goofy footers were included. I had to make sure that you heard some Delta in there. I also wanted to have some Roadhouse, but I also, if I'm being honest, there was this lost girl, I have this song called Searching, and it's like, I've done all these amazing things, but I'm lonely and my heart hurts. Would I trade all these amazing things for love? I don't know. So it was more about capturing those bigger questions, those bigger influences, than it was, how important is it? You know, I fell in love with a person, realized that I fell in love with the idea of a person, not the person. I fell in love with the hope. I fell in love with escaping. I fell in love with travel. I fell in love with trying to figure out who the hell I am. And the answer at the end of the day is I don't know. But now I have this body of work that at least takes you on a ride. Because if it was for something, if it matters, then everything you did was worth it.
Right.
And for me, this album, even if it matters to no one else, I did the damn thing.
One of my favorite well-meaning but inaccurate acronyms when it comes to spirituality is joy. Mm-hmm. Jesus, others, yourself. While it's a wonderful thing to put your spirituality or your God at the end of your life, why I know is out of order. Because if your own house isn't in order, mm-hmm. how the heck are you going to help point out somebody else's? So it's magnificent that you so frankly on record and in interview you've pointed out that aspect of your journey. Back to what you said about White Rabbit. How did your dad screw you over?
Okay, so disclaimer: if this is insulting in any way, it's just because I'm ill-informed. I'm sorry, but
well, you started on a very interesting foot. So.
Right. Well, I want to be very respectful. So, growing up in southern Alabama, there's a lot of Native American indigenous tribes.
Right.
I'm a card holder for the Porch Creek Indians.
I got a friend of mine with that lives on a reservation now.
That's amazing. Well, technically mine's a social card, but my mother was like, every person will say, oh, this percentage, like we traced it back. But my father would always tell these tall tales of these stories. Again, he's a songwriter. But I was a little girl. Right. But I was always super fascinated with Native American culture. I mean, I lived on Indian burial ground. We moved because we didn't know. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing to have that community. And I used to wish and pray that I was like more Native. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like obsessed. I was a weird kid. But my dad would tell us these stories around campfires, and that's the only time I really had a relationship with my father was like around campfires and on stage. So obviously, like I held on to those memories. But the smoke would be really bad. And he was like, well, if you say White Rabbit 3 times, it'll clear the smoke. And I was like, whatever. He's like, no, it's a Native American folk tale. Like they'll tell you it's real. And so because I was like obsessed with all things cultural at that time, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Fast forward about, 10, 15 years, I was trying to write songs that meant something because I was in this point of my career where I was like, well, I have a fan base now. There's like, if I say the wrong thing on social media, they attack me, so I might as well do something cool and say the right thing. So I thought, how cool would it be to clear the air, aka the smoke, by saying White Rabbit and have people listen? And the crux of that song is, you can call it a house, but that don't mean it's a home. And you don't get to heaven on good thoughts alone. Meaning, be all the things you say you're going to be. And I was like, how artsy and clever would it be to say White Rabbit? So I write this song, and I'm like, Dad, listen to this song. He's like, yeah, about that. that's actually not a Native American story. But here's a thing.
It's still a good story, but...
Well, I told that story because it's a great bar banter now, right? And a lot of people also grew up in my region thinking that was a thing. So they said White Rabbit. So then I just kind of now say it's about a mushroom trip and I ripped off Jefferson Airplane. But I still fondly think about, saying White Rabbit 3 times. Like if you say Bloody Mary 3 times, she appears. Not the same thing. But if you say White Rabbit 3 times, it makes the smoke clear.
Do you have any insight as to where your father picked that story up, or is it something he probably made up?
My dad would stop in the middle of the street in the car and turn the lights on and tell us we were being abducted by aliens in cornfields. So my dad is just my dad should have never had children, but he did, and here we are. But he used to tell me that he would jump out of helicopters, and so I would go to school, and teachers had said, Mr. Joyner, could you please stop telling your daughter these stories? Because she comes to school and tells them. I think some people are just created and born with more stories, and he is definitely one of them.
I come from a long line of Italian men who may or may not have done similar things, though not quite as creative as that. So, going forward, I mean, the incredible travel log that you've already created, this wonderful record you've done, you've already had a single out in the last year. We're in September 2025. What does the rest of the year look like? What does 2026 look like as far as once to join the music?
That is a $1 million question, isn't it? I actually experienced...
It should be $1 million music, so...
Oh, thank you. I'm manifesting. Actually, I'll answer that by also advocating for something that I feel like musicians don't talk about enough. I got severe postpartum after I released my album. I spent all this time and energy, after having my music deleted, holding my breath the whole process, trying to build up momentum for it. I learned how to build websites so that I could pay musicians by building them websites instead of paying for studio time. I did all these fundraisers to raise the money, completely self-funded, that by the time my album got released, I spent the next year being so mentally and soul zapped that I just kind of existed. And I mentioned this before we started recording. I've spent the most of this year in a fog. And I'm just now, to me, October is going to be January because I'm just now coming out of it. So I'm really focusing on being an artist more instead of just talking about it. I've started creating a lot of songwriter events for other artists because I think that I'm hoping that by watching them be inspired and watching them be artists, it'll help light a fire in me again. I'm also now in a really healthy relationship, and so I'm trying to balance, am I still a road warrior? Do I still book trips to random countries and play gigs just because I can? I don't know what any of that looks like, but I know that my greatest adventure right now, musically and in life, is just trying to go inward and asking myself, hey, what do I need to say right now? What do I need to do right now? And that's a really fancy way of saying I have no fucking idea. I'm sorry if I just wrong. But I don't know. And you know what? I think for the first time ever, I'm okay with that. Because I've always had a goal. I've always had a mountain to climb, or I'm just so easily inspired. Like now, I'm like, I want to do a podcast, or I want to start producing music again. I have no idea, but I know I'm going to do something.
I completely understand where you're coming from, that because we talked before this about the burnout. I do see within about a year and a half of the pace I'm going, mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm probably passing out in front of people at a bar in Name Your City, USA.
Yeah.
I'm going, but I always at the very least, options are the escape hatch. So I could lean into the podcast. I do have 2 records to finish. I do have hopefully I can save up a little bit of money and just exist for a month or 2.
Well, I think manifesting and putting out there is really important. Last night I had a conversation with a bar owner and some musicians that were hanging around, and everyone was going through their own collective heartache or loss. I was like, all right guys, I want you to pretend that we're sitting in this bar a year from now, and I want you to pretend like we're excited to share what we've done. And so, I'm a hypocrite. I'm all about inspiring other people, but what am I doing? I was like, okay, I can't wait to tell you guys about the music I'm creating because I want to and not because I have to. I'm at 230 something gigs already, and it's September. And so I need to do that to be able to pay my bills and be excited, but I realized recently, like, I've gotten into social media. I've cared more about the container that I'm putting my art in than actually my art. So now in this slow season of the gigs won't be coming as much. Fall is like my football season. I play my festivals. I usually go overseas. Maybe I won't this year, but now all that work I've done is going to run itself. Now I've got to figure out, what do I want this to mean? Because earlier in this interview we said if it didn't matter, then it was all for nothing. So now I've got to find what does it mean? What makes it matter?
I've come to this conclusion, and I had the great pleasure of, and in retrospect, it was the most rewarding time of my life, that first year when I was not only getting sober, but I was going through a divorce.
Okay.
I found in that time, and found my question of what is it all going to mean. I answered this in an interview that, legacy and all of that, that's for somebody else to write. And for me, I need to be satisfied with whatever that I put out. I'm proud of what I've written. I wouldn't write some of the things that I wrote back then today, but heavens, I stand by everything that I have ever written. I hope it meant something to somebody, but at the end of the day, it meant everything to me, and it's ultimately, and I'm sure you agree with the same, it's what kept me alive.
Well, and I'll say that I think also it's creating the spaces. Like, I think what you're doing right now is so beautiful. Like, in this moment, I'm getting to answer all these questions, and we're having this communication. We're both being artists, and that's why I create my songwriter events. And, I said some unsavory things about my ex, so I will say one positive thing. Like, when we lived in the van and toured full time, I got to be fully immersed in being an artist because I didn't have the overhead of bills and all this other stuff. So I think sometimes our legacy is just creating the spaces in which we can be artists, and if that's one gift, maybe kind of help me answer a question that I can give to others and to myself. It's like, what does it look like to be an artist? How do we do that in a way that's more meaningful? And what spaces can we put art in that wasn't there before? I mean, you're set up on a guitar amp stand doing this, and it's awesome, but you're creating art in a place that there wasn't. And maybe that's what my songwriter nights are, but I think in this roundabout way, you kind of helped me answer my question. I just think that some people are called to put art in places that they weren't there before, and maybe that's how you put color in the world. Maybe that's how you make a difference, and maybe that's your legacy. But I think that's the long, really road trip answer is I'm just trying to put art in places that didn't have art before.
Well, we have a nice way of closing here on the Craig Veltri interview, Melissa. It's called the No Kidding Questionnaire. A couple of rapid-fire questions first thing that comes to your mind. Whenever you're ready, and away we go. Childhood celebrity crush.
Mel Gibson and Braveheart before he went crazy.
Before he went crazy.
Let me specify. Very important distinction.
Well, I mean, he played a Scottish character.
Woo!
Was it the kilt?
It was the long hair and the passion to which he yelled freedom. I was just like, I want to follow him to freedom. and become fully free, I gather. What was you mentioned you became an English teacher? What was English your favorite subject in school? Literature or social studies. Even then, I loved escaping through words and through places and people.
Do you still have a favorite poem, book that you still read even after all this time?
Y'all are gonna laugh. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. There was something about the joy and grief and vulnerability and just childlike realness that the kid who writes the book is from the point of view that I feel like we lose that as an adult. So sometimes I go back to read that just to be that kid again and to remember some of the stuff's not that serious.
I have a similar view of a book I read in high school, but I have a negative conclusion of it now. Holden Caulfield, Catcher in the Rye.
Mm-hmm.
I related to that kid, and the fact that I related to that kid, I am disgusted by myself as a man, because you do realize you have your life handed to you, and your life isn't that bad. You just stop being a jerk. Is really
That's the beautiful thing about getting older. You're allowed to change.
Exactly.
And that is why I named my album Changing.
Exactly. Moving on to the questionnaire. What occupation other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would love to be a journalist or someone who interviews other musicians. I mean, I've kind of technically done it, but I'd like to do it again, I think.
You talked around your time with Nat Geo and PBS. You mentioned that you had been a a producer. Had you had any further experience prior to that, or?
No, but when COVID hit, I partnered with the Boathouse, which is a local venue, and my ex-boyfriend at the time, and another local videographer, and we had a whole series where it was very NPR meets Tiny Desk. We had a fully produced video that we would do of them live on location. I would interview them, and I just did that to build up my chops because I knew I was about to go on location, and I had never done it. So it kind of was like a guinea pig, soul passion project, all training ground for me, and I loved it. I love telling other people's stories.
That's why I do this. That's why I was a wrestling announcer for a little while as well.
The tracks.
We'll talk about that later. On the other side of the coin, what job, I don't care how many bags of money have been handed to you, Melissa Joyner, would you never want to attempt? It can be something you've done before.
IRS. In any facet.
I have not one but two relatives that are former IRS. I watched one retire with honors, basically. The other couldn't get off the computer quick enough.
Whoever has to answer the phone when you have to call because you're confused or have a complaint, I just don't want to be them. I almost said teacher because it's the hardest job I ever did, and they're so undervalued, and I won't go on that soapbox. But yeah, I don't want to be the call line person for the IRS.
Mm-hmm. I worked in a call center in general. I wouldn't go back to that for any bags of money, though it hadn't occurred to me because I guess I tried to block that out so much. Being a world traveler, this is going to be a fun one. What is your go-to food on a road trip?
Oh man, this is so disgustingly American. Until I was in Iceland, I thought no one could ruin pizza and that it was safe, but a town called Vík, Ireland let me know that that is in fact very fallible.
What did they do to my native dish?
Dude, it was awful. It was like saltine crackers that had been left out in the sun all day with some really sad marinara that hadn't seen the sunshine and who knows how long. It was just bad. Italian, that's my go-to. Any country I'm in, and you know what's funny? I'm actually going to Italy for the first time November.
Oh wow!
But the amount of Italian food I've consumed in other countries that are not Italian influenced blows my mind. It's just so good, man.
I will have to show you a picture of what Altoona, Pennsylvania, a pizza shop has done to pizza. Let's just say the cheese that they use is American.
Ooh.
So
shout out Detroit style pizza though. I don't care who you are, it's the best.
So that is your hot take on hot pizza.
Dude, if I got married tomorrow, I would have CJ's in a town called West Bloomfield in Michigan deliver my pizza. It's that good.
And where on the hand is that in Michigan?
I just love how all you guys do that right here. It's like 30 minutes
outside
from
Detroit.
I lived there for, well, that was where we stationed the van sometimes.
Okay. Well, good place. Easy to find parts for that, I would assume. Assuming it was a GM.
It was a...
or Ford or Chevy.
It was a Mercedes. It was a Sprinter.
Okay.
But all that, listen. If you need, well, it was, no, we were not. It was, they had a lean on it was like a basketball team's used van. He converted all that stuff before me. I'll give him props for that. But if you ever need to date a guy that can fix your cars, go to Michigan or some of those like northern states where y'all are from. All of y'all have to know how to fix stuff. These southern men, they don't do it anymore.
Well, I come from a long line of. I remember being at my one of my cousin's weddings, and they shared the story of her father who had unfortunately passed. But he told his daughter, find a guy who can change a tire, find a guy who can change oil, and to her credit, she did. I have AAA, and I'd
rather have one that can fix my computer now. Like, there's too many services out there, you know. It's like I figured it out. I was like, I can hire someone for that.
Yeah, independent woman over here. Here's the cheat code, guys. Find a woman who can do it herself. Anyway,
But to my ladies out there, I will say this. But then date a man who doesn't make you do it unless you just have to.
Exactly. Speaking of food, getting back to the questionnaire, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Nick Drake.
Not familiar. I know the name. I'm not familiar.
Man, I mean, it's funny. There's some other people that should come to my mind, but I remember exactly where I was when I heard Nick Drake for the first time. I'll send you a little link after this, but his music just takes my soul, cracks it open, and sticks his hand. Or Eva Cassidy. She is probably one of my biggest influences. I used to play with her brother when I was in Iceland. He's an amazing fiddle player, but I would just love to sit down with either one of them and just be like, like just exist, please.
I've heard people say the same thing about Jeff Buckley as far as his kind of music.
He's very similar in the same vein. I would say that. I should know more Jeff Buckley. I respect his music. I love it. I don't listen to a lot of other songwriters, and I think that's my shortcoming as a songwriter myself. But I'm just so easily influenced that I love them, but I can't deep dive in their music when I'm trying to create my own music.
The only time that has ever really been true to me recently, and truthfully, it's like I've been listening to the guy now for 10 years, but it's Jason Isbell for me.
Well, I mean, hell, if you're going to be influenced, at least do it the right way. It's amazing.
Exactly. And, further, I'm the kind of artist that, I've talked about many times on this podcast, the way I write is like a musical character coming to sing in the middle of a musical. But I would also say that what comes out is what I was digging at the moment. I always try to say previous because whenever you say last record, somebody's going to say, well, I hope it's your last record. But
they suck.
But my previous, they do suck. The previous record, that was bluegrass Americana because, middle of divorce, I was listening to my sad music, Lyle Lovett and Alison Krauss. So and before that I was in Nashville, so I was, it was kind of Dierks Bentley meets Tom Petty almost. So, and wait till you hear the next two records that I'm coming out with, because it is all over the place. The title track that I have planned sounds like me. Keith Urban meets The Darkness meets Simon and Garfunkel.
Well, you just made me realize I don't know that I've ever stayed anywhere long enough to have too many influences, other than like the Florida, Destin, Santa Rosa Beach, Gulf Shores, Alabama, Florida line, like all the stuff, like, or the Delta. Because in college it forced me to stay still. When I was a child I was forced to stay still. But ever since...
Where'd you go to college?
At Delta State University in the Mississippi Delta near Clarksdale.
Okay.
So the only times I've ever sat still is what I'm currently doing right now, which I'm on some weird bluegrass kick, so maybe this is my era of that. But
well, you are hanging out with Goofy Footers, so
it's banjo, man. It's like, I wouldn't say they're bluegrass though, but
they have some aesthetics to them.
For sure. But you just made me realize that, like, and I'm glad you mentioned 34 years, because my friend actually did a radio edit for me, and that's going to be being re-released as a single in November. But
congratulations.
I haven't stayed anywhere long enough to really be influenced. And maybe that's interesting why I don't listen to a lot of songwriters too much. I love their stuff. I'll listen to the same song on repeat for 4 hours.
Well, I get into those modes too. It's like asking, why you can point out all the reasons why you say you like a certain pizza or you like a certain thing. It's just I don't know. It hit the soul at the right time, and I will say that it really doesn't matter if you're listening to other artists as long as you're writing every day. It doesn't.
How important do you think that is? I don't do that at all. I really should.
I count editing as well.
Okay.
So I'm in the process of getting ready to do not 1 but 2 records. So I'm going back over some of the stuff, and I'm trying to see what I can do if there's a word there, and just listening to demos and other stuff, and maybe I love the people that have over 1,000 songs and 0 cuts, but I would it's a great thing to have that great big back catalog, but I'm really just trying to focus in on, if I can use a wrestling analogy, I'm more impressed with the people that have had these long title reigns, as opposed to having 16 or 20. That's so scattershot. They have this long time on top, and not the perfect analogy, but my point is that I'd rather have one song that lasts forever than having people sit through a bunch of songs that are barely familiar. So, if that made any sense.
It is, and I think I'm moving more towards the EP single route than albums right now, just because I don't have it in me. Like, I'm tired. Maybe in 20 years I'll come back and be like, oh, okay, this is my new thing. I can't do that ever again.
Yeah, I've talked to so many artists who are, making these great songs and these great singles, and for most of them, it's just a budget thing. You know,
I'm sure that's a huge part for me too. If I were to sit down and think about it.
Yeah, I respect anybody that's trying to keep the output. That's the reason I only put out one single this year, just because I wanted to work with this producer. I had this one song, and I had something to say about an old relationship that didn't work out. So kind of saving up dreams available on streaming at the moment. What is your biggest pet peeve?
It's so stupid to say it out loud.
Most are when you think about it.
Jokingly, I want to say assholes. People who ask for songs while you're playing a song on stage.
Seriously, you people just...
Asshole. That's what they're called.
ASKHOLE and LEAVE.
Yeah, but honestly, it's people who get water everywhere. Like I know that's so stupid. Like, I don't want to take a shower after someone else has been in the shower. It grosses me out. And when you're washing hands, people get water everywhere. I hate that. And it's I can't believe I just said that out loud. Normally, my filter would have caught it. We'll go with assholes.
Yeah, let's go with assholes because I'm not qualified to dig deeper into that. But I've never understood what people are thinking, because here you are in a microphone in the middle of a set, and they lean in. It's like, I can't hear you over the song. Sometimes I try.
Entitlement, man. That's all I can boil it down to, because I'm like, I would never go up to your job while you're plumbing and be like, hey, could you make me a taco?
Mm-hmm.
And so this happened to me. Where did I play last night? Or the night before last. I'm literally closing my eyes. I'm in a moment. I'm feeling it, which is rare when you gig as much as I do. But to be in it finally, and I look up and this person is just dangerously, I can tell you didn't wear deodorant sized away from me. And I don't want to play Merle Haggard. First of all, do you not see me playing a song right now? And the issue that I have is I'm nice because I'm in professional. When I click on professional mode, I'm in it so much that I can't even be a bitch if I wanted to, because I'm in professional mode.
I've grown it a little bit, but it's very hair trigger. So.
But man, I just looked at them and I was like, and sometimes when I have a wherefore, I'll be like, on the microphone I use, my teacher Melissa comes in, hey, thank you for waiting for me to finish this song to ask me for another song. I'd love to play your songs for you guys, but please don't ask me while I'm playing. And then other times I just get so worn down I don't care, and just go,
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends on which night you catch me on. But yeah, don't be an asshole.
Yeah, I'm thankful I don't run into it often, but you say it's the teacher mode. I learn a lot from watching comedians dealing with hecklers. It's because that's what it is. It's a form of heckling. They don't even know what they're doing in that aspect. You are interrupting a performance. That is the textbook definition of heckling.
I think you asked me earlier if I could be any other profession. I think I lied to you. I think I would secretly love to be a comedian. I would have my guitar. My favorite thing to do is make up songs on the spot, and people will give me words, or I'll make fun of people in the crowd.
That's improv.
I wish I did that for a living. That'd be fun.
If you've known me for probably a grand total of 2 hours, I've thought about being a stand-up comic here and there, and you know me and looking like that, and you're probably thinking to yourself, that's all I need to know why I'm not. So
I'm sure I'd get heckled, but then it'd be great material for songs. I feel like those careers could be hand in hand for each other, honestly. Ooh, you heard it here first, folks.
It is adjacent. You're standing in front of a room full of strangers. Some don't even know who you are, don't know what the heck you are doing, don't know what to make of you, and you are trying to get as many of those people in there to like you. The goal is our job is to make people stay in the bar long enough to buy a couple of extra drinks. Their job is a lot harder because they actually have to engage, because these people actually walked in paid and they are...
But what bigger joke than trying to make a living playing music? I mean, you're already there.
Last question of the questionnaire, normally. What is the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
I don't know who said it. I sometimes tell people and I feel like I made it up, but just in case I didn't make it up, we'll just say some nameless person. Save 20% for you. I have given so much of my music to every aspect, into being professional, to being successful, that I think I forgot why it was ever healing. So for me, piano. I'll sit at a piano and I'll play chords and I'll wail. And I'll let whatever pain or whatever it is in me that never gets to see the light of day out. I could take my piano to a gig and make money, but I won't do it because that's my 20%. That is my me. That is where I reconnect with music. So for whatever you do in life, maybe you're a chef, maybe you're a painter, save 20% for you. Make it sacred, make it special, make it something you can return home to. Because if you go out into the world and don't have a home to return to, and I know because I've been homeless, lived in a van, you get a little lost and untethered. So having 20% of something to hold on to, I think that's the best advice I could ever give someone.
It's funny that you describe yourself as a renegade and you describe just playing the piano. This is going to go to a question about your process because Tommy Shaw has said many times that he always starts his songs on piano, including Renegade as well. So have you found that within that 20% you find yourself converting from the piano to banjo or other instruments?
You know, early on in my career, yes, because I wasn't good enough at guitar yet to feel comfortable. Saxophone is my first instrument. Couldn't really do much there. I would have like melodies. I sing the way that I do because I grew up hearing my dad's guitar
Chords
solos.
are difficult, if not impossible. Sax,
Well, you could do some over. Well, anyway, I grew up singing guitar riffs. That's why my vocal cords are stretched and why I do so much jazz and improv and stuff. But the piano was my first taste of what music felt like instead of just sounded like. So early on, as a really awkward kid with no friends, I'd sit at the piano and play chords, but I didn't know there were chords yet, and write words. So I was making up songs. So I think my very birth into the world of songwriting probably did come from piano. Because I didn't play guitar. I wanted to. I've only been playing guitar for almost 14 or 15 years now. I literally started playing guitar the year I booked my first gig. Which is stupid. But piano's always been there. Yeah. But piano's always been the thing that's my home. That's my 20%. That's where I return home to. That's where I know where all the shortcuts are. You know, I know the back roads.
Where all the shortcuts are, as far as just like some like 7 chords or just...
No, even more simplistic and basic than that. If you know in your hometown, you know where the shortcuts and the back roads are.
Oh yeah.
To me, the piano, even though I don't play, like I know how to read sheet music, but I don't know piano. I know where chords are. I play piano the way I play guitar, ironically. But for me, I know how to get whatever is stuck inside of me out on the piano. Where a guitar, it's more like Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe it comes out, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I get distracted and I go write another song. But on piano, whatever it is that is bubbling up on me, that is distracting me from my regular life, that is preventing me from moving on, that is holding me captive, I can let it out on piano. Because I'm not thinking, I'm feeling. On guitar, I'm thinking still. You know, on saxophone, I'm thinking. On the other instruments I play, I'm thinking. But on piano, I'm not good enough to feel. Or wait, I'm not good enough to think. I just feel.
Of all people, I quote him quite often on this show, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. I remember him talking about when he was learning piano, that was very similar. That was the same way that he expressed himself, expressed his anger, expressed his happiness, and that's eventually how he became a songwriter. All the songs you heard on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he wound up writing. So this is the bonus question that I give to anybody that throughout the course of the interview or research that I discovered at one point was a teacher. I call it the Lonnie Billard Memorial question. It goes as follows. Maybe not the best advice that you have ever given your students, but what's the most common advice that you found giving your students?
I want to make sure I say this with intention. A lot of people are going to tell you who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to look like, what you should do. But none of them wake up in the morning, look in the mirror like you do. So if you're not okay with any of those things, then who are they to tell you that any of those things should be different?
There's only one person in the whole world like you, and people can like you exactly just the way you are. Going back to Mr. Rogers once again.
Yeah.
It's a universal and beautiful sentiment. This is the part of the program that every guest should enjoy the most. Melissa, it is time for shameless self-promotion. All your music is available. We talked about changing. We have talked around a lot of the music that is going to apparently be getting Melissa's version treatment in the near future, and I'm sure much to your delight that will be happening. Where can we find your music, and where can we find you?
Good luck on finding me. I'm never in the same place long enough. But my website's melissajoynermusic.com. My music is available everywhere you consume music. If I'm not in the water, I'm probably on a plane somewhere, or maybe I'm actually just sleeping, doing nothing. But I play almost 7 days a week. You can find me. I'm doing a lot of these events. The most important thing I'd love to plug right now is my Songwriters Nights at the Tasting Room on 9th and Myrtle Beach every Monday for September and October. You can find amazing songwriters like Craig here came out and played at Landshark in North Myrtle Beach at Barefoot Landing the first and third Thursdays of October and November starting on the 2nd. And if you're in North Carolina and you want to come out or you don't mind driving from Wilmington, we are at Southport at the Haven, and those are different. So this next one is October 1st, the first Wednesday. So
That's correct.
Lots of places to create art where there wasn't art.
Filling in the colors. And one more, I will give you one more question just because I do want to talk a little bit about surfing. I've never done it myself, and doing it later in life, and doing it in a town that I watched the beach the last 3 years. It's not exactly big kahuna kind of stuff.
It can be.
So that ought to say, biggest wave you've ever caught.
Well, I thought I was going to die in Portugal, and I created what I called submarine surfing. It's probably like a 7-foot wave, and I had no business on that. For reference, I'm 6 foot. It doesn't sound that big, but when you're out there, it's coming at you. During this last hurricane, so I had one of the biggest waves, and I had no business being out there, but you learn a lot about yourself, and you might die. And it's
Now there's a song title.
Hawaii and the North Shore, or I'd say Portugal was the most wild, scary wave because it felt like the Empire State Building was coming my way. Granted, I'm sure I'm exaggerating to tell a good story, but I said 7 foot. To me, it felt like 20, but you never know. It was 2 hours south of one of the biggest waves in the whole world is, in Edisera, and it was traumatizing. But I did it, and I didn't die. But surfing later in life.
How long did you stay on it? Would you say? Were you on it?
Well, that's the wave that it literally was so steep that I just shot down in the water. I went underneath the water, submerged, held onto my board for dear life because there's rocks and mountains. I popped back up, realized I was still alive, popped up and rode it. And the thing is, for surfers, it feels like it was like 30 minutes. It was probably like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
But, I didn't die.
Yeah. Obviously, you weren't out there alone, too. And
I was at part of a great retreat that my friend hosts. And, I don't like to surf alone. For me, surfing is a communion with my fellow people and community. And, it's funny, a lot of people attribute a God, and I do too as well, in music, but surfing saved my life. And you can hear it in my music. It's been the best thing I've ever done for myself ever.
I will say that, the Beach Boys and a lot of that 60s rock, it's the definitive sound of what surf music is. And the fact that it came out of your voice and it came out of this wonderfully Mississippi Delta Americana soundscape that you created, it's a very nice spin and a very refreshing take on a very refreshing activity, so to speak.
But there's always another wave, and I think that's something that can literally go across every single thing in life. Like, you might wait out there all day and never get a break, like music. But then if you don't give up, you're going to be rewarded by a wave. You might catch a wave, it's the best wave of your life, like relationship, and then it screws you over and you get completely wiped out. But if you don't quit, you can catch another wave again. You might be waiting your whole life for something to come true. The point that I'm trying to make here is that everything comes down to if you want it bad enough. I remember the first time I went surfing, I was covered in bruises, and nothing has ever beat me up that much, and I just couldn't wait to have more of it. Maybe that's something I should talk about in therapy, but the point is, there's always going to be another wave if you stay out there. So whatever it is you're going through in life, if you don't give up, you find, NO means new opportunity. So just find another wave, and there will always be one. Even in Myrtle Beach, where sometimes you have to put a lawn chair on a paddleboard because there's nothing else to do. I surfed an inflatable couch out here one time because we were so bored. But that's where the play is. That's where you have fun.
Yeah, I love the views of Virginia Beach probably above all, because it is constant. It's constant surf, and
I didn't
also
love it there when I surfed there. I thought it was flat and mushy and gross.
I must have been there on a good week for it, but
No offense, Virginia. Don't come for me.
well, who knows? It's not like they're known for conflict. Anyway, Melissa, it was an absolute joy spending this last hour speaking to you about life and music, and hopefully this won't be the last time that we get to speak on such subjects. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Craig Veltri Interview.
Yeah, thanks for creating art in a place that it wasn't.
The Craig Veltri Interview, where Craig Veltri interviews wonderful people, is a production of Scarfire Media, the voice of the independent artist. Written and edited by Craig Veltri. Your announcer is Megan Pennington. The opening theme, Shut Up, I Love You, written by Trenton Chandler and Craig Veltri. Performed by Craig Veltri. Produced by Jack Gavin. The new single, Saving Up Dreams, is available now on all the streaming services except for Spotify. Spotify has not kept my songs up on their libraries, so they have kept the pages active. So if you want to hear my music, use anything but Spotify. Apple Music's still live. YouTube Music's still live. Napster, still a thing and still live. So if you want to hear any of my music, check it out on any of the streaming sites except Spotify, or conversely, time now to update the event calendar, because you must know where I am at all times. Brought to you in part by Sandpiper Entertainment. Friday, October 3rd, Black Drum Brewing in Kingston Plantation, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, from 6 to 9 p.m. Then Saturday, heading to North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, at Tin Roof from 3 to 6 p.m. For full dates, including Charlotte, Canton, Ohio, Nashville, and Memphis, check out my website, craigveltri.bandzoogle.com. For booking info, including full band and this podcast, email me at craigveltriofficial@gmail.com. You can find the interview on Facebook by searching the Craig Veltri Interview, YouTube at Craig Veltri Music. Check out the store on bonfire.com for Scarfire Media, and you can find me on Instagram, or as my older mate, the Tommy Thomas, used to call it, Instagirl, at craig.veltri. For Melissa Joyner, I'm Craig Veltri, and this has been the Craig Veltri Interview. With that, I'll pass. Here's Melissa Joyner with the title track from her most recent album. Here's Changing on the Craig Veltri Interview, proud member of the Scarfire Media Podcast Network.
I don't need bullets 'cause I got this mouth. I get it from my mama and my roots deep in the South. And I pray for forgiveness and I do the best I can to be a better person, but it don't always go as planned. And I'm shifting and I'm changing, shedding all the skin I'm in. I'm seeing brand new colors, so they're finally sinking in. Said I'm changing, not just rearranging. What are you waiting for? Said I'm changing, not just rearranging. Walking into brand new doors, and I'm walking out of doors. 'Cause no one's gonna save you now. Give it before you give out. What are you waiting for? And I thought love meant giving away everything you had to the other person. Tell me, where's the good in that? And everything cuts deeper once you understand the laws. But what you gain from growing pains is double all the cost. And once you lost the laughter that you thought would never leave, oh, you realize the other side to all that you believe. Said I'm changing, not just rearranging. What are you waiting for? Said I'm changing, not just rearranging. Walking into brand new doors, and I'm walking out of yours. 'Cause no one's gonna save you now. Give it before you give out. What are you waiting for? getting out of yours, 'cause no one's gonna save you now. Give in before you give out. What are you waiting for? Ooh, I don't need bullets 'cause I got this mouth. I get it from my mama and my roots deep in the South. I said I'm changing.